Welcome. I'm Joyce Feng, a current student at the Yenching Academy of Peking University. Today we're going to give you an introduction to our academy. So I'm joined in the presence of Professor Brent Haas, our Associate Dean, and Professor Lu Yang, our Director of Graduate Studies. Today, we'll start off by giving you a history of China studies. Then we'll move on to the story and curriculum of Yenching Academy. Finally, we'll bring you, our dear potential applicant, into our school through briefing about the application process into our academy. So now, Brent, could you tell us a little bit about the history of China studies?
Thank you, Joyce. The academic study of China in today's world and over the last several centuries is generally described in terms of three major terms: sinology, Chinese studies, and China studies. Sinology generally focuses on the linguistic engagement with the cultural products of ancient Chinese civilization and requires a high level of familiarity and expertise in the written forms of Chinese language in the classical and literary forms. Chinese studies as an academic discipline focuses more on proficiency in the spoken Chinese language, including some of the regional dialects. This field of study developed in the mid-19th century as a response to the more practical needs of missionaries, merchants, and government officials as they were going abroad. And China studies was part and parcel of a development of a field of integrated interdisciplinary studies of non-Western cultures known as area studies. These two legendary missionary academics, Matteo Ricci and James Legge, are good bookends for the early centuries of the development of sinology. Matteo Ricci, an Italian Jesuit missionary, was active in China during the late 16th and early 17th centuries and really began the academic study of Chinese civilization. James Legge, a Scottish linguist, translator, and missionary, would become the first chair of Chinese languages and literatures at Oxford University, and his major contributions of translating many of the classics from Chinese civilization are still in use today. France was also incredibly influential in developing sinology as an academic profession. In the 19th century, you can see the dividing point in two different approaches to studying China and Chinese language. What is now known as INALCO, in the 19th century known as the National Institute of Living Oriental Languages, instituted the first Chinese language courses in the 1840s in Europe. On the right, you can see Edouard Chavannes, one of a trio of major giants in the academic discipline of sinology in the late 19th and early 20th century. The French form of academic sinology would continue to be most influential until the middle part of the 20th century. It was during the middle part of the 20th century when the great Chinese historian from the United States, John King Fairbank, revolutionized the field of China studies by integrating language study, research approaches from different social scientific disciplines, and more of a temporal focus on current events and contemporary China. This, known as China studies, was part and parcel of a move towards area studies, an interdisciplinary approach to studying non-Western civilizations and cultures. So institutional research on China, generally speaking today, takes several different forms. Sinology, the venerated academic tradition, continues at many universities in continental Europe. The study and research on languages and cultures often takes place in departments or institutes at university, generally described as East Asian languages and cultures or civilizations. Area studies with a focus on China or Asia can take place in many academic departments, but also in institutes or centers focused on area studies. And at both the undergraduate and graduate level, China as a regional focus is often integrated into other academic disciplines and departments. The history department with a regional focus on China, political science with a regional focus on Asia, etc. And of course, there is research being done from a policy and strategy perspective at think tanks around the world. So, what's left out of this narrative here? One, the sinological and China studies traditions from many different countries around the world, including Russia, East Asian countries like Japan, Korea, the Netherlands, Germany, etc. But a really important part of the story that is left out are the contributions of centuries, generations of Chinese intellectuals and Chinese scholars who focused on critically engaging with and reassessing their own received traditions. What might be called the commentarial tradition in Chinese academic endeavor was always influential in the ways that it shaped sinological studies and China studies over the last several centuries. The Yenching Academy of Peking University, by being situated at Peking University, allows our scholars to fully integrate into the academic and research milieu of Peking University to learn about China studies from the best professors in China.
Thank you for the beautiful lesson, Brent. So it seems very much that sinology is a modern tradition and Yenching Academy is its inheritor. Could we now have then Professor Liu tell us a little bit about the story of Yenching Academy?
Thank you, Joyce. The Yenching Academy is the most recent innovation in Chinese higher education. But the purpose of this program, a 2-year master's program, is very much along the line of this long tradition of exploring and understand China, not just as a complex and rich historical phenomenon, a rich culture, but also as a global phenomenon with increasing role of China in the global community. This program is very much developed by Peking University, try to take full advantage of the rich resources on the campus, its faculty, its unique position in the Chinese higher education system, and try to provide the best quality, the best possible education to international students who want to understand China and want to make China part of their career and education development in the long run. And this program we set up from the very beginning is try to be innovative, try to be flexible, and try to be independent. So openness, flexibility, and independent thinking is very much the guiding principles for this program. This master's program basically offers a full fellowship. It's a residential program in China studies and on campus, and try to be part of this university. We don't want to make this program very much an sort of autonomous kind of entity, rather an integral part of the university, and try to be fully integrated with all the programs, its education, teaching, activities on campus. But in the meantime, we try to develop a unique curriculum and as well as a system of activities that allow students to explore contemporary China and try to link their experience with the knowledge they learn in the classroom. Okay, this program offers a lot of resources to students. The core part of it, of course, is full tuition coverage and a monthly stipend, a round trip fare for any international students and domestic students to come to Beijing from their native place. We also offer the residential accommodation on campus. All these are unprecedented in the current environment of Chinese higher education. But this is only part of the story. We also offer many different types of research support and activity support to international students and domestic students of this program to allow them to have all the resources available to them in China and try to maximize the time they spend here, the resources they can use to nurture themselves, to understand and to develop a unique interest about China. The program is designed from the very beginning to have two characteristics. First, it has to be part of the Chinese higher education system, which has its own characteristics. But in the meantime, we also try to be as international as possible. The whole program, the language that we use as basic teaching language is English, but with an increasing role played by Chinese language in its curriculum as well as daily activities. One great benefit for the international students in particular is to come to this program and to have the opportunity learn Chinese language and try to use the language skills they learn during the 2-year program to enrich themselves. In the meantime, we have developed this program and try to create a structure that both fit the Chinese education system, but in the meantime, as flexible as possible. One thing we did is to create 6 concentrations. And these concentrations basically will become the structure to guide the students to have a particular focus in the areas of humanities, social sciences. So the 6 concentrations, the first one is economics and management, history and archaeology, law and society, literature and culture, philosophy and religion, politics and international relations. Of course, these 6 concentrations will not be able to cover a great diverse interests and disciplines, but we try to make sure that at least each student will have a clear goal when they come to the Yenching Academy. So when they come to the Yenching Academy, we will urge them to select one of these 6 concentrations as the basic sort of structure of their study here during those 2-year period. But this doesn't mean that it will restrict them from selecting courses, from limiting their options in their pursuit of China studies. Instead, we create a flexible curriculum that allow them to select all the courses they need to study and to enrich themselves. So the students who probably has a background in social sciences may find a deep interest in courses such as history and philosophy and vice versa. And so from the very beginning, one thing makes Yenching Academy program very different from many other programs on campus is to limit the number of required courses. We do have a number of required courses which are carefully planned by the faculty and administration of the academy. But in the meantime, we try to create as many interesting elective courses as possible, specifically tailored for our students. These are the courses taught basically by faculty members on campus. Many of them have their own expertise in their own discipline. But in the meantime, these courses are specially designed for our students, a student body with a more international and a diverse background and interests. And you can check from our website to see many of these courses, and each concentration will have a number of courses specially designed for them. Another very important innovation of the Yenching Academy is to create a unique advising structure. All students who come to the Yenching Academy will receive full support from our faculty and administration. We want to make sure that they are fully nurtured to develop their own academic interest. So one thing we did is to give them an academic advisor, and then these academic advisor may become their thesis advisor. And these academic advisors, currently we have 138 coming from 24 departments and schools across the campus. And these faculty members, they understand the culture of the Yenching Academy. They offer courses, and they are very familiar with our culture, and they are willing to spend their time, their busy schedule, to nurture our students. These academic advisors will guide our students to understand the campus culture, to understand the unique education structure of the university, such as PKU, and also will have connections in terms of academic interest, will give them advice on course selection, topic selection for their thesis, and etc. And so these academic advisors will establish a connection with our students, and eventually they may become the thesis advisor when the topics selected by our students for their thesis match the interest, the academic interest of these advisors. So this is a very important thing that works very well over the years. In terms of our curriculum, as I mentioned earlier, we try to limit the number of required courses to maximize the flexibility for our students to develop their own curriculum. But we do have wonderful required courses that all the students have to take, and they will benefit from taking such courses. One example I will give you here, given the time limit, is China in Transition. These courses try to offer an overview of a rich and a complex development of contemporary China. It is offered by a team of excellent faculty members, both from the PKU as well as faculty scholars invited from abroad. And these courses not only give students a unique experience in the classroom, but we also offer them a field trip, a field research trip, encourage students to develop a group research project, and so they can take a trip to different places in China, and eventually this sort of classroom learning with field trip will give them a holistic view of China that will probably make left a long-term impact for their future. And these field trips and site visits is only part of the rich program of the Yenching Academy. As any student who come to this program will know, you often find the support coming from every corners of the university, and we try to fully take advantage of that, and that's our mission, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you, Professor Liu. Charismatic as always. So now that we've heard a little bit about the past of sinology and the present of Yenching Academy, how can you, our applicant, take part in creating its future? Would Brent tell us about it, please?
Thanks, Joyce. So the Yenching Academy of Peking University is a highly competitive, fully funded graduate program in China Studies. Because of that, we are certainly looking for students and applicants with outstanding academic records. Success in the classroom is important to being able to join our program. However, we don't just look at applicants from an academic or grades perspective. We're also interested in knowing a little bit more about who you are in your life and outside of the classroom. We value leadership experience, leadership potential. We also value commitment to extracurricular activities. If there is an activity that you've spent time and energy that perhaps has helped shape you into who you are today, such as, do you have a startup company? Are you focused on community service, social justice, social engagement? Are you an artist, a musician, an athlete? We want to know who you are outside of the classroom, and we're also interested in the ways that you might be able to contribute to our developing student and alumni culture. We are an international, multicultural, diverse student body. Therefore, we highly value students who have experience in or commitment to exploring different cultures through education, value sensitive, cross-cultural communication, and multiculturalism in general. Although you do not have to have majored or have a degree in China Studies or Asian Studies to be considered for acceptance to the Yenching Academy, since we are a China Studies graduate program, we also value students who have a demonstrated interest in the academic study of China. Have you taken coursework related to China, Chinese language? Have you studied abroad or traveled in China? If this fits your profile, these might be competitive advantages for you, so I suggest you emphasize that in your application materials. Although it's not required, if that represents you and your academic experience, please let us know. And just like any graduate school application or job application, we want to see a well thought out rationale for why you're interested in China studies, why you're interested in the Yenching Academy specifically, where you want to go in your career, and how studying with us for 2 years and receiving a master's degree from Peking University can help you achieve those career goals. Since the language of education and administration at YCA is English, English language proficiency is required for admission to the program. We have, over the first 7 cohorts of Yenching Scholars from 2015 to 2021, had nearly 750 scholars join our program from over 80 different countries and regions. Here you can see the diversity, geographical, national, linguistic, religious, that make up our student body in the program. These are some of the top universities around the world that have placed the highest number of graduates into the Yenching Academy of Peking University. You can see that these are universities from all over the world, some with very strong China studies programs, others just generally excellent. But I do want to emphasize, you do not have to be a graduate of one of these so-called famous universities to be able to join our program. Every applicant who applies to the Yenching Academy must choose their research area within China studies. Professor Liu mentioned our research areas earlier, and we can see that these are the research areas that the first 7 cohorts of Yenching Academy applicants have chosen. We do not have quotas for research areas. This unbalanced interest in research areas at the Yenching Academy is not planned. Rather, it represents the research areas that the best applicants in any given year have chosen. The minimum requirement for admission to the Yenching Academy is completing a bachelor's degree by the end of August in the year in which you intend to enroll. Essentially, you can't start graduate school until you've completed your bachelor's degree. If you are from the Chinese regions of Hong Kong, Macao, and Taiwan, you will apply just as I will show in the next slide. However, there is a parallel application process at Peking University for an application portal for scholars from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. Our application portal is open every year from August until generally the first week in December. Applications will be submitted at yenchingacademy.pku.edu.cn. For non-native English speakers and those who have not attended universities taught in English, you are required to submit one of the standard English language proficiency test scores. We will need to see certificates of enrollment if you have not yet graduated at the time of application, as well as diplomas from all degree-granting institutions of higher education from which you have graduated. We need to see official transcripts from your bachelor's program and or other graduate programs if you're applying as a graduate student. We will need a personal statement in English, maximum of 750 words. This is your standard graduate school personal statement, who you are, why you're interested in our program, where you want to go in your career, and how we can help you achieve those goals. We also require a statement of research interest of no more than 1,500 words, excluding citations, which you should consider as the first step in a multi-year conversation you will have with faculty at the Yenching Academy and at Peking University about your developing master's thesis research project. We need a resume or a CV and 2 academic letters of reference that, according to Peking University regulations, must be from associate or full professors or equivalent titles. After graduation, Yenching Scholars have great success in taking the next step in their career. Roughly 30% of Yenching Scholars continue their graduate study at the doctoral or other levels, as well as many move on to top positions in international companies, Chinese corporations going global, international organizations, as well as in different government services. If you're interested in learning more about the Yenching Academy, please go to our website. I especially recommend you look at profiles of current Yenching Scholars. to help give you a confidence boost, the different routes, different backgrounds, both professional and academic, that have led these talented young people to become Yenching Scholars. And of course, you can find us at all of the normally used social media platforms in China and abroad.
Thank you, Brent. So, having heard about the past, present, and future of Yenching Academy, I'm sure that I, if I weren't already in Yenching Academy, would be applying. Thank you once more to Brent, and thank you once more to Professor Liu for today's session. And thank you, our dear applicant, for tuning in. Since I am actually a student of Yenching Academy, why don't we actually have a session between myself, Brent, and also an alumni about our experience, our here and now of Yenching Academy.
Okay, well now we're going to move into the discussion section of today's information session about the Yenching Academy of Peking University. I'm very fortunate to be joined by one recent graduate of Yenching Academy and a current Yenching Scholar. So how about you introduce yourselves?
Okay, ladies first.
Yeah, so I'm Joyce and I am from Hong Kong, China. I studied art and philosophy at Harvard University, and then I came to Yenching Academy to study literature and culture, specializing in Chinese contemporary art.
Okay, hi there. My name is Agbaji Dixon David, and I'm a Nigerian. I'm a member of the 5th cohort of the Yenching Academy of Peking University. I are concentrated in politics and international relations. I'm also currently a doctoral student at the Graduate School of Education at Peking University still. I am also an intern. Before this, I interned at the South-South Corporations and Partnerships Unit of UNICEF China Country Office here in China. Thank you.
So Dixon, let's start off with you. You know, YCA has 6 different research areas in the program. How about you tell us a little bit about your research area and why you chose it?
Okay, thank you, Brent. My research area is politics and international relations, and when I thought about the research area during the application process, I considered 3 factors. Number 1 was my interest in China and China's political system. I felt, and I still do feel right now, that for any country to transform itself on the global stage the way China has done, means that country needs a strong political engine. And despite my curiosity about China's political engine, the second aspect was the curriculum. So the course or the program itself is designed in such a way that irrespective of even choosing politics and IR, I could still take courses in other areas. So, you know, it just felt to me like a multidisciplinary program, and I went for it. I read an article yesterday from THE, Times Higher Education, the university ranking platform, and the title of the article was this: Masters should be multidisciplinary. When I read it, I just laughed. This is what Yenching has been doing for the last 7 years. And then the last thing was my undergraduate background. I finished from the University of Calabar, studied political science, so I felt politics and IR must be a good fit for me. So that was what happened, and I found myself in Yenching studying politics and international relations here.
Great, thanks Dixon. And what about you, Joyce?
Yeah, and so for me, I'm right now in a track of literature and culture. For me, it was a quite straightforward choice because I did art and philosophy undergrad, and going to grad school, I knew that I wanted to do art, theory, and history. So I chose literature and culture, and my advisor is also from that track. What I do think is interesting about Yenching Academy, though, is that once I'm in this track, I find out that not only is Yenching Academy interdisciplinary between the 6 research areas, but within each area, it's also interdisciplinary. So in Yenching Academy, as I'm in the track of literature and culture, I've actually had the chance at the same time to take part in courses like history, like architecture, like art, etc. So I thought that was really lovely because as far as I was concerned, the research track, the research area is more kind of for the purpose of my second year thesis, what kind of thesis I'm going to write about, what advisor will I cooperate with. But then for the most part, I thought that I was able to be in this research area and at the same time have a flexibility to choose interdisciplinarily. And I thought what was the most interesting as well is that I'm in literature and culture, but other students from other backgrounds who are also in literature and culture, in virtue of our differences in culture and also the universities that we were trained in undergrad, we actually bring in a quite different cultural perspective into the same discipline. So yeah, I think, I chose literature and culture, but I suppose I'm very glad to say that it was very diverse in terms of discipline and in terms of culture as well.
If I may jump in quickly, I remember I took a course on cultural dimensions of China foreign relations, and I wrote an article about cultural artifacts in China and also in Africa, and even published a piece on it on Beijing Review. So that's to show you how multidisciplinary it is. Even though I came in to study political science, I found myself reading about cultural artifacts, so it's just so interesting what the Yenching Academy would offer.
Great. I think you brought out two important points. Although you choose a research area when you apply, you are not restricted to taking elective courses defined as within that research area, whether it's politics, international relations, or literature and culture. Also, these research areas are, even within the research area, highly interdisciplinary. And everyone brings their own academic training and cultural background to their own research area. So no one's experience is going to be exactly the same. Excellent, thanks.
True.
Another important aspect of the academic experience at the Yenching Academy is working closely with Peking University faculty, conceptualizing, researching, and writing your master's thesis. So I'm really interested to hear from both of you what your experience was like with faculty advisors and on your thesis.
Okay, I can take that. So I wrote my thesis on the impact of Chinese foreign direct investment in Africa, a case of skill transfer in Nigeria. And my thesis argues that Chinese companies relied on on-the-job, probationary on-the-job training, assemblage of technologies, and the speed over that emanated from that process, and then corporate social responsibilities to upgrade the skill sets of the local workers rather than intra-industry labor mobility. And then I found out that Chinese companies were flying geese that provided localized employment, they internalized their process, and they transferred industrial knowledge. So that's just a brief summary of my thesis. Then working with my supervisor was a very amazing experience for me. One thing that stood out was the fact that we had this good communication network. He was always willing to listen and give constructive feedback. He would respond on time. He never ghosted me, unlike you hear some people saying, oh, I reached out to my supervisor, I've not heard from him in like a month or two. No, he never ghosted me. So there was just a consistent channel of communication. And he would always recommend texts, even recommend scholars or people to consult. And for me, that stood out a lot. And our relationship has actually transcended Yenching. He invited me to join him as student assistant at his institute, Institute for Global Communications, Global Cooperation and Understanding here at PKU. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing how our relationship will move even after this current condition in which we're in.
So Dixon, you are currently working on your doctorate at Peking University.
Yes, I am.
So Dixon liked the Yenching Academy so much that he decided to not really leave PKU. We're always happy to see Dixon around campus, even after he's graduated.
Me too. I like being part of the big Yenching family. So.
Joyce, what about you?
Yeah, so it's funny that today both Dixon and I are speaking because Dixon finished his thesis last year and I'm right now in the middle of it. With my thesis, I'm struggling a little, but happily. So what I'm writing about, since I'm in literature and culture, I'm writing about the Chinese contemporary artist Xu Bing, who both lives and works in Beijing and New York. He's a very prolific artist, so he's made installation, he's made film, he's made etching, he's made paintings, he's made sort of, I think, everything that you can imagine that exists in the art world. And my task is actually to provide an interpretation that gives a constellation that explains his diversity with, say, one root. And that root, for example, might be repetition. So I want to use the concept of repetition to sort of interpret, to tell the story of his evolution as an artist within Beijing into an artist that goes into New York, and then finally into an artist that sort of works around the globe. So a kind of progression from national to international to finally global as an artist. And yeah, so right now just thinking of structuring it as, Arthur Danto announced the end of art in 1984, and I wanted to start with Subung's work, which comes 3 years after that, how he starts at the end of art and then gives sort of both the Chinese and Western world of art a kind of new beginning, a kind of new opening where everything is possible. So I'm struggling with that because it's a quite grand maybe conception, and Professor Peng, I have the best experience working with Professor Peng because Professor Peng, who's right now the Dean of the School of Arts, came from a philosophy background, and what he's amazing at in working with me, in working with his own essays, and working with other artists as well, because he, in addition to being an academic, he's also a curator and he's also a producer. He's really able to sort of, take the explosion that is me and kind of concentrate it to just one nucleus of one question, one narrative. And so working with him has not only been intellectually, but also personally, spiritually, like inspiring, that he concentrates, directs, and disciplines my energy. And I'm really so grateful for him because in addition to working on our thesis together, he's also not shy. He's so generous in introducing me to different artists that he knows from his past 20, 30 years, 40 years working in the arts in Beijing. And so I think I really look forward to not only knowing him through the rest of my thesis, but through the rest of my stay in Beijing, maybe through the rest of my life, if he would have it. So
excellent. In any graduate program, your relationship with your thesis or academic advisor is certainly one of the most important relationships you'll have that can help ensure your success as a young researcher and as a scholar. And interesting that you're working on the art and life of Subung. Subung came and gave a talk at the Yenching Academy in the fall of 2019 as part of our Topics in China Studies lecture series, one of our core required courses.
Sure.
So happy to hear that both of you had and are having wonderful experiences with your thesis advisors. Let's talk a little bit about life outside of the classroom and outside of academia at the Yenching Academy. So what kinds of activities or clubs were you involved in from an extracurricular perspective?
First of all, I would like to talk about the very informal activities that I experienced at Yenching. One was the Yenching Olympics. We had during the pandemic, we had this activity where scholars all over the world will engage in exercise. You'd see some people planking for 10, 15, 20 minutes,
Wow. Push-ups,
and also it was just a way to engage the community all over the world because travel restrictions, people couldn't come in, and this was our own way to stay connected and stay healthy at that time. I also experienced Yenching also provides a platform to allow scholars show their culture. Yenching scholars are from different cultural, ethnic backgrounds from all over the world. I experienced my first Indian festival here on campus at the Yenching Academy, the Diwali. We had the whole experience of, writing in notes to your loved ones. I received some very good notes. I also sent some very good notes. You just place them under the doors, and the person wakes up to find, some notes of you appreciating them or something like that. So it was that good feeling to experience other people's cultures, and it opens the door to understanding people, nations, and what it is that make them as a person. And I can move straight to the YGS, the Yenching Global Symposium. It's a Yenching flagship program where scholars engage in brainstorming about a particular event, like a conference, and speakers from all over the world are invited, and even delegates. In 2019, my cohort, the 5th cohort, we started the YGS preparing for it like every other cohort. but because of the pandemic, we couldn't execute in 2020. Our theme was Sino-sustainability, but all the same, we're quite glad that the next year, Michael Yip and Casey organized a wonderful event just called our Shared Renewal, recoupling the East and West, on such a timely topic, with the disparity right now in the world, and, nations trying to go away from themselves rather than coming together, banding together to solve world's challenges. A vast variety of speakers came in. I remember Dr. Martin Reiser from the World Bank came in. Yenching Ming also talked. Professor Hea Fei, I was opportunity to sit here with him in one of the courses. Professor Howey, they all came in and talked about different issues on the importance of studying China for international development from the angle of literature, arts, education, infrastructure development, just different angles on how studying China is important, and the need for the West and the East to recouple, because we're all one human race, and solving the global problem is essential for these two regions or these two areas to come in and work. So for me, it's a great opportunity, and the fact that Yenching sponsors Yenching Scholars to run with the program, it's something outstanding, something I really appreciate about the program.
Thanks, Dixon. Speaking of the Yenching Academy sponsoring Yenching Scholars to run with a creative new event or activity, I think, Joyce, you have some experience in that department.
Quite so. Yeah, so it's actually funny that Dixon ended, your sort of answer with the Yenching Global Symposium with Shared Renewal, because I was actually invited to take part as one of the speakers to run the cultural workshop. And the reason why I was invited was that I was actually at the time creating an exhibition called Through Our Door, 我们, an intercultural and interdisciplinary exhibition. So then this exhibition, we decided that it has 3 parts: history, culture, and also art. And then we actually ended up working with 33 different people, not only within Yenching Academy, but also between different schools and colleges within Peking University, but also between different universities within China, with scholars from over, say, like 4 countries around the world, which I think is an important sort of task to do during the pandemic times, right? Because during the pandemic times, it just is that most of our scholars can't return to campus. And most of our delegates for Yenching Global Symposium, who usually are invited to actually spend a weekend in Yenching Academy, aren't able to make it here in person. So we decided, that, okay, like now that we can't have everybody return in their body into this space, why don't we invite them through our text, through our images, through our research, through our interviews, into this space, spiritually, if not bodily. And so we created this exhibition, and I am really, really grateful because, at the end, right, we have a team of 33 people. At the opening of our exhibition, Brent spoke, Dixon came, different sort of faculties came as well, like Professor Peng, my advisor, the Dean of School of Arts, came and spoke, and even Professor Wang Bo, the Vice President of Peking University, came over. And everything, in the end, I suppose, if we kind of look back at it, has a sort of beautiful, grand, romantic image. But I think what I'm really, really grateful about is actually the origin, like the sort of first few months of doing it. Because, a year ago, this month, November, would have been when I just started making this exhibition. And then it was just me as a single person, and I went to speak with one of the laoshis. I say, hey, I have this idea, I want to create this exhibition in and about like our academy, in and about Jingyuan. And then eventually, we became a team of 2, we became a team of 4, we became a team of 8, 13, 33. We spoke with not only laoshis, we spoke with you, Brent, we spoke with the sort of top team of Yenching Academy, we spoke with different people, say manufacturers around Beijing, paint and wood, etc., and everything sort of exploded in the end. But really, in the origin, it really just started with an idea in my mind when I communicated with one of the laoshis of Yenching Academy, and Yenching Academy, I thought, really trusted me, because then I came for a month. Nobody really knew me. Nobody had any reason to trust me that I could create something, and yet I think Yenching, I'm always so grateful that you trusted me before you had any reason to. And that support was not only spiritual but also material to some extent. And so, yeah, and I happen to actually know that, Yenching Global Symposium started out in this very similar way, because I actually know one of the co-founders of Yenching Global Symposium. And what I'm really sort of seeing in Yenching is really shining with this love and support and trust of their students, that if you really have any ideas in your mind, as long as you develop it, as long as you're able to sort of let us see how you can materialize your vision, how you can make into reality your dream, then Yenching Academy has 100% your back.
Yeah.
And so grateful as always.
Thanks, Joyce and Dixon. I hope that all of you watching obviously realize that the Yenching Academy is an academic graduate program focusing on China studies, but it's not just that. We want you to think of it as a platform for you to bring your experiences, your expertise, combine it with your interest in the academic study of China, and bump into other talented young Yenching scholars, mix up your interests and see what kinds of innovative, creative things you can make together. Great. So now let's move into comparing and perhaps comparing the Yenching Academy with some of the other options that potential applicants might be considering, such as professional opportunities, language programs, perhaps other graduate programs. So what do you think might be a great selling point of the Yenching Academy as someone considers whether or not they should apply?
Okay, so one of the first things I think anyone should think of is the alumni network. Currently, Yenching has over 740 scholars from the last 7 years, and it's a huge family. But some people will be like, oh, yeah, other programs have alumni, so what makes Yenching stand out? Then the next thing is the fact that it's a 2-year program. So the first year is for your coursework, and then the second year is basically explore China or explore your interest within China. And some people would end up doing internship, some people would do TA, some people pursue even their passion. I remember Kazuki as a travel blogger or vlogger, I'm not very certain. I remember in Chongqing during our trip in 2019, he was like, hey guys, oh nice to see you here, stuff like that. And you'd see him pursuing his passion. So the second year is basically just do what you really want to do. And icing on the cake is that it's all fully funded, provided you meet the requirements for the first year, then Yenching takes care of you. But just ensure that you submit your thesis. So while you're pursuing your interest, pursuing your passion, don't forget the fact that it's a graduate program and thesis is a major requirement to get your certificate. So for me, it's really one of the biggest selling points. Some programs just 1 year, I mean 8 months even, and it's just coursework, thesis, and you're out of China, except if you have some other things to do like work to stay back. But Yenching, you just have 1 year to explore everything you can about this country, and it's really amazing to be here in China, to study China within China. And the Yenching platform, it's something amazing that you could seize the opportunity. I really welcome you.
And since I'm in literature and culture, let me sort of take the task of comparing it to different language courses as well. Because for me, from my perspective, language is and is about. You never really learn a language only in order to learn a language. You always learn a language to speak it, perhaps. And so then there's always the language itself and the context from where the language came and in which you will speak this language. And I think at Yenching Academy, you not only have an immersive environment to learn the Chinese language, you also learn about the sort of context in which this language will be used, in which you will speak this language and make bridges with other people. And I really agree with the part about grounding yourself in a particular place, because for me, I'll just share a little bit more about how, in my second year of Yenching Academy right now, I feel I am so grounded, not only in Yenching Academy, but also Peking University, but also Beijing in itself, because in your first year, I really agree with the part about having a 2-year program. In the first year, you kind of arrive at Yenching Academy, you arrive at Peking University, you arrive at Beijing. And second year, once you arrive, it's like you sort of start taking roots, and then you start being invited to, say, like gallery openings. You get invited to the School of Architecture and Landscape of Peking University to teach master students the same age as you are or even older than you are, you're invited to maybe like help run an exhibition in the Beijing Normal University. And I really find that sort of, if I could put it this way, I feel like I'm a seed that's been sort of scattered into the land of, Yenching Academy, and there's the sunlight of Brent, and there's the water of like different courses, and the nutrition from different kind of Yenching scholars that you meet from all around the world with their cultural backgrounds, with their passions, with their inspirations and expertise and knowledge, and then you really grow and you find out the shape of the flower, the tree that you are, and you really bloom. I think this is a place where this Yenching family really sort of tries to make you grow as a person as it grows itself. And I think, first year, second year, maybe 3, 4, 5 years you'll stay in Beijing and you really bloom with roots in this academy. And I'm so grateful, as usual.
And if I'll quickly add, one more thing is the fact that there are lots of opportunities available to you as long as you're a Yenching scholar. You're a top student coming to a top institution within a top university. So they're just doors are opening for you as long as you place yourself in the right moment and you do the right work. I remember I did internship at UNICEF. I'm currently doing my internship at the American consulting firm APCO worldwide, and it's just amazing the amount of opportunities exposed to you just having that name Yenching Scholar or Peking University Scholar. So it's for me it's really something very amazing. Before continuing my doctoral studies from Yenching, I applied to different universities in China, Fudan, Beijing Normal University, and Beida, Peking University. I got admission into all 3 universities, but I decided to stay here at Beida. I also got a job offer, but I was like, let me just remain with Beida and complete my studies. So they're just vast opportunities. I can't really start talking about the opportunities. They're just a lot, and it's really nice for you to place yourself in that condition to assess those opportunities and run with them.
Great, thank you both. And finally, in the time we have remaining, what advice do you have for those who are considering applying to the Yenching Academy?
I would just continue from what I said. There are opportunities available, but the first thing you should understand is this: because your competition spans beyond your home country, Yenching scholars are from all over the world. So work very hard on your application, and then when you finally come in here, then make do of all the opportunities available to you. There are massive resources in Yenching, in PKU. Make use of those opportunities. Also, the network. I think that's the major selling point about Yenching, the fact that you have a vast array of scholars from different specializations, different countries. You just meet people from different areas. There's really nothing you want to think of right now. Like, you can't just drop in the Yenching WeChat group. Hey guys, I'm really in need of this particular idea or something. Anyone has expertise in this area, and there'll be someone always willing to reach out to you. So work on your applications, and when you're here, finally make use of all the opportunities, and the sky is definitely your limit.
And I would actually just continue and say that I think I have 2 advice. So the first is actually to think reciprocation, right? Because as an applicant, there's so much that Yenching Academy can offer you, right? With its reputation, with its resources, just sort of the resources of Yenching Academy and Peking University as well. So Yenching Academy has such a rich repertoire of things that it can give you, things that it can sort of help you grow. But then I think the question is always that, well, what about you? How can you sort of bring your best into Yenching Academy? How can you bring out the best in Yenching Academy, right? Because you want to think about reciprocation not necessarily as just transaction, right? Because you come in and then you actually grow here. And the academy grows with you, right? And the more you grow and the more academy grows, it's like a symbiotic relationship where both of you end up blooming more and both of you sort of end up recruiting more resources. And so then think about it as like a long-term relationship, right? Like, I'm here with this academy and I want to sort of bring out the best in it, and it will bring out the best in me. And so then reciprocation, I think, really is the key. To be attractive, not only maybe as an applicant, but also as a person. And then my second advice is actually, continuing on that line of thought, is to think bridge and mirror. Because Yenching Academy, what it does is that it builds bridges between cultures, it builds bridges between disciplines, it builds bridges between where you are and where you want to be. At the same time, in addition to that, take Yenching Academy and the application to it also as a mirror. Because now you're standing with Yenching Academy and it reflects to you who you are, and you can also take this as a chance to reflect on who you are and who you want to become. Because really, there's so many different opportunities around, and why here, why now, why you in Yenching Academy. And I think once you clarify that, it won't only, I suppose, help your application in Yenching Academy, maybe it will also help you sort of find your direction to guide yourself into your future.
All right. Thank you very much. Finally, one more bit of advice. Graduate school applications are difficult. It's a challenging but rewarding process, but you don't have to do it alone. My strong recommendation is that you reach out to your mentors, whether they are professors, academics, fellowship advisors. Share your goals for the Yenching Academy. Share your application documents. Think and talk to those whose opinions you trust about your statement of research interest. Get feedback, get constructive criticism, draft and redraft. That will help you put your best foot forward and will give you the best chance of joining what I hope you realize is a dynamic, growing group of outstanding scholars from around the world. Thank you, Dixon. Thank you, Joyce. As always, it's a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for joining us for today's video introducing the Yenching Academy of Peking University. And to our viewers, we appreciate your attention and your interest, and we wish you the best of luck in the application process.
Yeah, bye-bye.